Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Western Spirit. Today, we're going to speak about something very interesting and a little bit unusual, I think, for the type of episodes that we do or that I do here. We're going to talk about, with someone, first of all, very interesting, and also about anti Semitism, hatred, racism, and all those broad umbrella of issues, but from more of the right, I guess, neo Nazi skinhead type of subjects we've been talking a lot about since October 7th, the progressive left's protests on campuses and all over the place. And we've sort of not realized or not put our emphasis on the other side of things and how it's important to confront that side as well. And so today I have John Daly. John is the author of the new book, From Hate to Healing, My Journey of Resilience in Overcoming Neo-Nazism, Murder, and Brain Cancer to Find Redemption. So, John, it is great to have you with us today.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you very much, Ariel.
So, John, we were talking before we started recording about the October 7th and how October 7th as a date, all the way back from 1990, is a date that is important for you. So maybe explain to our viewers and listeners who you are and why October 7th as a date, not 2023, 1990 is the date that is important, that started October 7th for you.
When I was in high school, I joined a group that was against racism, an anti-racist skinhead group. That group was forcibly recruited into a larger neo-Nazi organization. Now, naturally, we kept my Jewishness a secret. My friends and I didn't want to share it because if they knew, they would try and kill me. So I spent 6 months with neo-Nazi skinheads, knowing that someday they were going to try and murder me. So I was keeping track in a diary of where I was going, what I was doing, who I was meeting with. Because I was in high school and getting good grades, to get covered in tattoos, they moved me up in the ranks. And when I became an officer, more and more people began to know who I was. On October 7, 1990, I was ordered to an officers' meeting in Daytona Beach, Florida. When I got to the meeting, they knew I was Jewish, and they decided they were going to murder me that night.
And that was on October 7th.
October 7th,
1990.
Yes.
And so before we get to the meeting when you are basically about to get murdered, what brought you, you said a non-racist skinhead. When I grew up, skinheads were neo-Nazis, racist, the way we looked at it.
Yes.
Could you explain to us what does a non-racist skinhead group mean?
A non-racist skinhead group is one that's more about camaraderie and self-defense, if you will, and they're more patriots. They're working class kids. They're anti-racist skins, Nazi skins, gay skins, Jewish skins, black skins, you name it, across the entire spectrum. There's something that somewhat falls in. It started off as a music genre. That's how it started in the UK. It's the UK's largest export, or biggest export, because it's in every single country in the world. It's even found skinheads here in Israel.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah. 2007, they were beating people up in Petach Tikva.
Where I live.
The Israeli police called me in and asked me to please decipher some of the tattoos and things like that on the guys.
Wow.
So I just looked at it and was like, this means this means that. And by looking at it, you can tell who different people are and what they mean, what they stand for.
So you are part of this skinhead group that is, like you say, camaraderie, friendship, doing different things, but not on a racist Nazi level.
Correct.
And then what you said, you got co-opted. You were forced, this group was forced into the larger umbrella of the racist skinheads. How did that happen? And when did they realize that you were actually Jewish? How did they come to realize this?
Like you, I thought all skinheads were racist. When I first met the anti-racist skinheads, I said, look, I'm sure you guys are great, but I can't hang out with you because I'm Jewish. And one guy lifted his shirt and there was a white hand and a black hand cracking a swastika in two. And he said, oh, no, we're not those types of skinheads. We're anti-racist. One of those guys, that particular guy with another skinhead, also went to Orlando one night, and they went to a club. And in that club, they were approached by a group of neo-Nazi skinheads. And they said, okay, give us the names and addresses of your friends, where you're from. And they did. And, of course, they weren't thinking they were, oh, John's Jewish, we shouldn't give his address. So one day there was a knock on my door, I opened the door. There were 3 neo-Nazi skinheads outside. And I knew I had a choice. I could either let them in, and then they could go to the house and look around and see Judaica and things like that. And I had 3 brothers and my mom and dad. Who are they going to attack?
Yeah.
That's what I thought they were there for, was to attack somebody. And there was no way they were going to come in. So at 16, I walked out the front door with them. I figured if they're here to kill me, I'd rather be someplace else, not in the age of my family. So I left with them. And we went for a drive. And as we drove, they told me about certain people that used to be involved and quit coming around and got mysteriously shot and mysteriously caught on fire, mysteriously this, mysteriously that. And then they said, welcome aboard.
So they wanted you to be part of their group.
Correct.
They didn't realize you were Jewish at the time.
No.
Well, obviously.
No.
And then you become part at the age of 16. This is in the 1980s, I guess, late 80s.
1990, yeah.
No, because 1990. Oh, you were there for 6 months, you said, and then October 7, 1990. That's when they realized, before that, I guess, that you're Jewish, and they come up with the plan to bring you over and try to kill you. So,
correct.
Give us a little bit of what happens then.
I was in the skinheads for a year. I was in the racist group for 6 months, from May to October.
Yeah.
I got a phone call from one of the heads of an organization called the American Front, saying that a girl from our city had stolen some materials from their office, and she had the name American Front tattooed on the back of her neck. And I got a phone call one night, 1 o'clock in the morning, so we want the tattoo back. We don't care what you do to her, but we want the tattoo back.
What do you mean the tattoo back? You have to cut it off? Or
Yeah.
That's what they were asking you to do?
Effectively kill her, but without saying kill her.
And take the piece of her face, of her back, of her neck.
Plausible deniability. We want the tattoo back. Yes, that's
So what did you decide to do?
I talked to her. I was like, look, whatever you did to them, they're really upset with you. You need to make it right because they want to kill you and don't want me to do it. So she knew my secret. She's the ex-wife of a very good friend of mine, and she went to some really crazy Nazi skinheads and was like, hey, John's Jewish. And that's what started the ball rolling.
Because she was using the fact that she was snitching on you, so to speak.
To
Not
save
so
her
to speak.
life.
Snitching on you in order so that you're the bigger fish to fry.
Correct.
To leave her alone and take care of you.
Indeed.
But what were you doing for those 6 months until they got you? What exactly were you doing? You were beating people up. You were going to... what was the... I guess, what is the life of a skinhead, a racist skinhead in America? What do they do?
The life of a racist skinhead in the States is about alcohol and fights are just part and parcel of the whole process. You just
How do they
realize
make money? What do they do all day?
They steal. They don't work. Most don't work. I was the only one that was in school. I was one of the only ones that had a job.
And that's why you were maybe valuable to them.
Yes.
So what, but in terms of their actual racist activities, they would go looking for African American and Jews. What were they doing?
On the city. My city, they were more relaxed because we were a group that started off as anti-racist
Right.
and was recruited into a racist group. The larger Nazi gangs in bigger cities, it was nothing for them to stab somebody, shoot somebody, run somebody over, burn somebody, crucify people that left the organization. That was not uncommon.
So, but another thing that is interesting to me is, were there, I guess, meetings of like, let's say a regular neo-Nazi person, a soldier, so not the leader, does he know ideologically what the group believes in? Do they teach people sort of like the manifesto of the group? Or is it just a shidduch of, borrowing a Yiddish word, of like convenience because it's good. You have friends, you're going beating people up, you're drinking,
It's more about something like, if I can convince you that what I'm doing is okay and you accept it and I think you're an okay person, it gives me, it increases my self-esteem towards what I'm doing, which I know is wrong. But if it's like with drugs, somebody tries to convince you to do drugs, and if you do it, it's like it raises their belief that what they're doing is actually okay, not as bad as it is. That's a lot of what some of the racist skinheads are doing. They're looking for something to get involved with, a place to belong. I was speaking for Hillel in the States, and they were driving me to the Hillel. And they said, okay, how do these people recruit? And I said, please stop at any pub you like, and we'll go in and recruit a couple people. Look for the guy leaning against the wall by himself and go be nice to him. That's it. That's all he wants.
But why are we, as, let's put it this way, why should people in America, or, people who are worried about Israel, Jews, anti-racist people, whatever, why should they be worried of these people if basically what you're saying is on the larger scale, they don't really, most of them know even like why they're doing what they're doing. It's more for the convenience of like giving themselves validation of who they are. Is there, most of them, as I understand, maybe I'm not understanding, you seem to be saying they don't really have an ideology. They're there because it makes them feel better about themselves. They
scapegoat everybody else. Every problem in their life is because of you. And
right.
They sit somebody down, they say, okay, you're not making enough money? Well, Bill Gates isn't making enough money. And they walk you through every single thing in your life. Well, it's because of this, it's because of that. And they explain your failures as being because of somebody else. And at that point, you feel like a holy war. You feel like everything that you're doing now is a racist. It's for the betterment of everyone within your society or your culture.
Okay. So, why are they dangerous, let's say? Because I guess that's the main question. Should we be worried about skinheads or neo-Nazis or, let's say, on the broad umbrella of right-wing extremists in America, right-wing in terms of the American right-wing, but the more fringe sort of I don't even would you call them right wing? What would you call them?
It's hard to say now.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
they merged. After, in 2016, they were saying vote Biden, believe it or not.
Yes, and even in 2024, because Trump was friends with the Jews, and
Zion Don,
what's
yeah.
his name? Nick Fuentes said
Yeah,
that,
Zion Don.
yeah. So Nick Fuentes is considered sort of a cult leader for them at this point.
It depends who you ask, but yeah.
Yes,
They're not really huge fans of him, but
Are these also people who could we put the KKK in different types of in these types of?
you most definitely could. The KKK was more a relaxed group, if you will. I know
Yeah.
that sounds crazy. I mean, they were killing people in the 60s, 50s,
Yes.
and 60s. When I was involved, we became their shock troops, if you will. The skinheads were the ones that they would try and get out and go do things because we were the younger, more violent guys.
Uh-huh.
So the Klan was more usually older guys that had a career and a job. They were like, just get somebody else.
So when you go to the States to give speeches and talks and meet people about this, what exactly are you telling them? Because I'll tell you why I find this conversation very interesting, but also a bit confusing, is that after October 7th, and even before, but especially after, we saw the West in general and America as part of it totally go giant protests against Jews and Israel, against Jewish shops and, restaurants of Jews that were even burnt, and attacks against Jews. I remember a guy in LA, a Jewish guy, was thrown to the ground and died. Different crazy stories like that. And almost uniformly, all of them come from either the Islamists or the progressive left. And we seem to not be talking about what you said, I don't know if we should call it the right, but like the more...
It's hard to say.
Exactly. So do you think that in a way the progressive left has co-opted a lot of what you were doing as a youngster?
It's the exact... If you look at the characters used by the BDS movement,
Yes.
it's the exact same stuff used by the far right. The exact same
Explain.
pictures. Jews with the long nose, a lot of the photographs and things like there's...
And also, John, one more thing that I have to say, and maybe is that the progressive left, the way they use it in sort of the intersectional stuff, is that the Jews control it's like whoever's powerful. So if you are in a group that's less successful, it means that you're being pillaged by the ones that are more successful. The Jews are more successful, so therefore they're the pillagers. It's exactly what skinheads believe in, right? We're not as well off. It's not because of us. It's because the Jew...
Them. It's somebody
Yes,
else. Yes,
exactly. The Jew, the African-American,
didn't
whatever.
do well in school, it's because of the African-Americans. Yeah, it's always because of somebody else.
So is this sort of shoehorn theory where the crazies meet somewhere?
Yes.
So we have basically a story where you can come in growing up in these racist skinheads and say that the protests, which call themselves progressive, even though there's nothing progressive about them,
it's very true.
regressive, they are exactly the neo-Nazis that you grew up with in the way they think of the world. They may call themselves more like, normal, progressive, whatever.
Many of them can be that way, yes. Definitely, there are a lot of... I've spent a lot of time on Telegram and following racist organizations,
Yes.
racist groups, racist chat groups, reading their various ideas and things that they're up to. And they definitely talk about how to get involved with, like, Antifa-type groups. Like, say you go... put a flyer out at a park one weekend saying there's going to be a BLM movement that weekend, and then put in it and spread flyers when there's going to be a Klan meeting at the same park at the same day at the same time, just to cause a problem between two different groups.
Yeah, and also one thing that I did see is that you have people like Candace Owens. She's African-American. She's black. The neo-Nazis used to hate the black people. Now, Nick Fuentes is like, they're talking with each other on Twitter, and you have her followers going after his followers, and not going after in the bad sense. Following each other in the good sense and promoting each other's content and saying, you should have him on, he should have you on. And it's like, is the Jew, in terms of the way they look at the world, the people who grew up, the Jew is the worst of the worst?
Of course.
More than the blacks and
we're
Hispanics.
the super evil.
Yes, so that is why you can sort of cooperate with black people in order to get at the Jew, right? It's like the worst...
The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Aha. So even if I don't like black people, if they're together with me against the Jewish people, the Jewish state, Israel, whatever, we can work together.
Racists have something called the Day of the Rope. The Day of the Rope is when everyone that they disagree with, another race that they don't like, is going to die. And they're going to hang them. So if you fight with me now, it means more of your people are dying in the war. So after the war, it's going to be less of you and we're going to be here and we're going to be strong, so we're going to come back and finish you off.
It all makes sense.
It does. To them, it does.
Yes.
When you play it out, it all does. And
Wait, so
This episode is brought to you by Ayn Rand Center Israel. We meet every alternate Friday to study and discuss the philosophy of Ayn Rand, author of The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged. The topics range from ethics to politics, reason versus faith, aesthetics, psychology, and much, much more. This is the only place in Israel where Ayn Rand's unique philosophy is accessible to you, and you're welcome to come learn all about it. It's a great opportunity to learn and meet really interesting people. Attendance is free, and first-timers get a free book. We meet every alternate Friday at the WeWork in Sorona Market, and we like to keep the intellectual discussion going afterwards with some great food and drinks. Click the link for more info on Ayn Rand Center Israel.
wait, so John, I keep on going. What happened on October 7th? So you come to the place, they invite you, and she snitched on you. You know this after. Obviously, I don't think you knew this because you wouldn't have gone to the meeting.
obviously not. No.
Yeah. So you get there, and what happens? They want to kill you.
When I was there on October 7th,
1990.
something like that, and I could hear them talking about violence. I knew somebody was getting hurt that night, and I didn't know who or what.
You don't know it was you.
I just figured it was somebody random on the streets or something like that.
And then what happened?
They were like, all right, let's go to the beach. And I thought, cool, it's getting late. I can leave all these drunk fools here behind, and I can drive home. It was like 80, 90 miles back to my house. It was getting late. I'd worked all day that day. I had to work all day the following day. I was like, I want to go home. We get to the beach. And once we got down to the water, I was like, great, I can lose them in the dark. That'd be easy. And one guy punched me behind my ear. And then when he hit me, we started fighting back and forth, and somebody shouted now, and the other 6 guys jumped in. So there were 7 guys kicking me and punching me all at the same time.
In the water.
On the beach. And then they dragged me into the water.
And then what happened? They
Well,
tried to drown you?
I was dragged into the water to the shouts of "Die, Jew boy, die." Was held in the water, didn't drown on the first attempt, washed up with the shore. They started walking away, turned around and looked back and saw me that I was still alive. One came back, started talking to me, and when he was talking to me, saying this did not happen, because I was asking what happened from the shock, what happened. He's like, nothing happened, you just tried to blow it off. I was like, no, man, you guys tried to kill me. He's like, no, we didn't. And as I was talking to him, one guy came running back, kicked me here strong enough to lift me from a sitting position to a standing position.
How many guys were there?
7 total.
7 people are beating the crap out of you. They
Wearing
try
combat
drowning
boots,
you.
yes.
You are able to somehow not drown. And then he comes and kicks you. And at that point, what happens? So you're standing because of the force of the kick.
Well, 7 jumped on me again that time.
Again, they jumped on you.
Yes, and they dragged me out to the sea again, and this time 2 sat on me, one holding my throat in a chokehold, and they pushed my head down into the sand, and I was there until I inhaled the salt water.
And then what? How did you stay alive?
Baruch Hashem.
No, so they leave you there because they think you're dead.
Their testimony in court was that I was a foot underwater with my eyes and mouth open, floating out to sea. The tide was going out when they pushed me out, and they watched me float out. It takes 2 pulses of your diaphragm to fill your lungs with salt water, to fill your lungs with water. And when the water comes in, you automatically exhale to try and push it out.
Yeah.
But you want to breathe so bad you inhale again. And it takes and your lungs will inflate and deflate with the tide.
So they leave you because they're 100% sure you're dead. That's their testimony.
Positive, yeah.
So when did you wake up?
I woke up above the shoreline.
The water took you back to the shore, and you just suddenly woke up.
There's no explanation to it.
And then you wake up miraculously, because literally it's miraculously,
Indeed.
and you see that you're on the shore. You remember what happened right away, or it takes you time?
It takes a little bit. I managed to find my car, get to my car, and drove back to where I lived in Ocala, Florida.
So you get home after this unbelievable experience where you're dead, alive, 7 people that you knew that you were, I guess, you knew them before, most of them, and they try killing you twice, and you're all bruised up, I assume, also,
Indeed, yeah.
and you could hardly breathe because your lungs took a beating either way. So you get home in shock, I assume.
Indeed.
And then what do you do?
I took a shower and went to bed.
So you wake up the next day. Okay, so
My mom woke me up the next day for me to go to work, and she knocked on the door, and I rolled over, and she saw my face and how blue it was, and she's from that day to this, she would never knock on the door if I was facing the wall. She'd never come into her room if I was facing the wall.
Because of the trauma?
Yes, out of fear that I'd turn back and it'd be the same face again.
Wow. So she took you to the hospital, I assume.
Yeah, I went to the hospital that day. They put me in, and they said that when I initially started telling the hospital what had happened, they were like, "That's impossible. There's no way you could have survived all this stuff. You're lying."
When did the police get into the story?
The police got into the story. I was attacked on Friday evening. The police got into the story the following Thursday when some of the guys started getting arrested, and the Nazis that tried to kill me found me in the hospital that I was at and called me in the hospital.
The people who tried to kill you reached out. They thought you were dead. They then heard that you were alive at the hospital.
Ocala is a small town, yes.
Yeah, and then they reached out to you at the hospital, and they called you on the phone, or they came to you?
Called.
And then you answer, and you realize this is one of the people that tried to kill me. And what did they tell you?
Basically, keep your mouth shut.
They threatened you.
Yeah, that's basically what was going on.
Okay, so the police came in after that. So you were going to be quiet at that point, or you decided to?
Oh no.
You decided to open things
I
up.
had long since decided, and it's something I mention a lot whenever I talk. If something happens to you, God forbid, you have to speak up. You must, because I knew that with the hate crimes law that I could come to Israel straight away.
Yes.
I can make Aliyah straight away and come here and run away. But I also knew that if I did that, I sent a very clear message. You beat up a black person, you go to jail with hate crimes to tell all. Beat up a Spanish person, you go to jail with the hate crimes law. Beat up an Asian person, you go to jail with the hate crimes law. Beat up a Jewish person, they leave. Mm-hmm. What message did I just send?
That it's easy to beat up Jewish people and get away with it.
I sent them a green light, yeah.
So what did you do?
I decided to stay and testify against them, which I did.
So you went to the police and you filed basically a complaint. You told them this is what happened. They believed you at the beginning because it's pretty unbelievable.
In the beginning, they did not. They came to my hotel room, my hospital room at and Barzillai, not Barzillai, that's Ashkelon.
Barzillai is here.
Yeah, it's here. The hospital in Ocala, Florida. They came to visit me. When the police were there talking to me and got my story, when they wrote it all out, one of the other guys that tried to attack me had already turned himself in Orlando because he realized that what they had done was bad enough they were going to get some serious jail time.
So they already had someone who was willing to talk with them?
They had corroboration, correct.
So that's why they started believing you.
Correct.
Because if they wouldn't have it, it would be more difficult also to prove because it's basically your word against theirs.
Oh, they sang. They all sang.
They all admitted that this happened.
Correct.
How long did they actually go to jail for?
Of my attackers, two that went to jail the longest went to jail for attempted murder. Most
How long?
Of them, 10 years. Most went to jail.
They're all out at this
yes,
point.
they're all well out.
Do we know if they all stayed like skinheads and stuff, or?
Years ago, the Southern Poverty Law Center did something on 10 Who Terrify, the 10 scariest racists in the United States, one of whom was mine.
But what about the other 6?
I don't know.
No, but it's safe to assume that they all basically...
I know 2 still are. One was the head of a neo-Nazi, has become the head of a major neo-Nazi organization in the States. Another one is definitely still involved. My attempted murderers are definitely the ones that are most involved.
So they have very good careers.
Correct. Well, make them famous.
Yes. So you made them famous, and then that gave them street cred.
Yes.
So they tried killing a Jew.
And prison cred, yeah.
And they went to jail for trying to kill a Jew. Mm-hmm. It's major street cred for people who... Because how many Jews already? It's a rare thing to actually do it.
And an insider in their own group was.
So this made them actually more popular among the skinheads. The fact that they almost killed you.
In prison, maybe. In our group, not necessarily. Like the girl that said, "Oh, he's Jewish," and set up the attack.
Yeah.
Suffered beatings for years because she did something outside of the pale. She organized a hit on somebody without permission, if you will.
Wait, so the people who killed you weren't part of your specific group. They were part of like a larger umbrella.
They're from Orlando, Florida. I grew up in Ocala. I lived in Ocala, Florida, which is smaller.
So why did you go to them? Because they asked you to come, so you were like, I'll come.
Well, my friends hooked up with them at the club, and they came to my house from Orlando.
And you were 16 or 17 at the
16.
So you're a young teenager. You're going to, you were basically, a teenager.
Yes.
I'm trying to fix in my mind. So you think that how many teenagers actually get into this kind of stuff nowadays? It's not fashion. In the 90s, would it be fair to say that it was a little less of a taboo to be a skinhead than it is today?
Yes.
Today, it's like the worst thing you could be in America is a racist.
Agreed, because if you're a racist in the States now, it's, God forbid, you're a Republican. That's what people say straight away.
No, right away, yeah.
It's been the last couple of years, which I think is just horrific. What it does is taken 50% of America and like, you guys are trash.
Yes.
And that creates...
Not just trash, you're evil.
It's a breeding ground for these guys to come in and start recruiting them out. And that's something that I see is them coming in and trying to recruit guys like that out.
But isn't it also a breeding ground for the other side? So one side, you can't be a racist because that's the worst thing. The other side, it's actually acceptable racism.
You can do whatever you want to as long as you do it in the name of justice.
Or DEI or whatever it's called.
Exactly. And it's something that's horrific.
So can you give us a little bit about when you go to the U.S. and you speak to people on college campuses, for example, when you say something like that, when you say, or even when you hint at the fact that a lot of the things that you were taught or the people that were around you were taught is actually creeping up in higher education in America. So skinheads, I'll tell you one thing that I find interesting about this conversation. So skinheads usually, like you even said, they don't have educations. They're
Usually.
poor.
Mhm.
They're usually coming from
Broken
homes. They're usually, I would say, lower, like white trash. Like, could we say that? More, it's a bad stereotype.
I don't like that
but
term, but
yeah, we know what it means, even
lower
though it's
socioeconomic, yeah.
yeah. And so, we're able to, as people here speaking now, or people who are more intellectual, quote unquote, we're able to say these are people that we know where they're coming from. But then when you go to college campuses, a lot of these people are higher educated, people with money, people who should know better, right?
When I speak in front of groups like that, what I try and focus on is our humanity.
Yes.
And that if you keep focusing on saying this group or that group is bad, what you're doing is you're becoming just like them. Speaking in a shul, God bless, in Vermont, which is a very, very liberal place.
Yes. Bernie Sanders comes
Yes.
from
I was asked by somebody in the crowd about hating. And we got on the topic of hatred. And I said, if you hate them, you become just like them. And he said, so I can't hate the haters? So I was like, it's preferable that not. You can work to try and change them. And I can tell you the number one factor that changes most extremists is the personal connection. Somebody breaking the stereotype. Somebody, either a white supremacist or
BLM rioter or a Islamist
Yes.
or whoever.
So I was looking for the word, too many brain surgeries. Sometimes that happens. Like every so often when I speak to a group,
We're going to get to that now.
I'll have somebody in the crowd and be like, your job is to remember where I just was and bring me back if we get lost.
Yeah.
But with different groups like that, what they do is they point at others and say, you're the evil, you're the wrong. And if you,
It's like cults where
Yes.
you like have an idea, and anything that comes between you and that idea, that's a bad person. That's something we have to get rid of. Don't talk with your parents. Don't talk with your siblings. And then once you do give in and do talk to your siblings and parents, it's much easier to pull you away from the bad stuff. So they tried killing you. You testify against them. They get most. You said the ones who did the more of the hitting and choking and drowning. They get 10 years about, and so the court case finishes, sentenced. Were you happy with the sentencing?
well, sort of, I guess.
No, like, do you think they should have gotten more at the time? Were you like hoping they would get more?
I didn't have any expectations whatsoever. No one ever tried to kill me before. So
Yes.
I went
Okay.
into it
Fair enough.
with
So
clean hands. I had no idea.
So the court case finishes, and you're 17, 18 at the time, probably.
By the time it was finishing, it
18?
took 6-7 years.
Oh, yeah?
It took a
So
couple
you
years.
stayed in the U.S. for like till you were 24, more
23.
or less. 23. And the court case finishes, you're 23 years old. You decide at that point that, I assume, were you afraid that other people would try to kill you because you snitched on these skinheads?
There were threats. There were definitely threats.
People were reaching out saying, we're going to kill you.
Sure. Oh, yeah, naturally. There were times I'd go to testify, and the police were always worried that something was going to happen that
This
time.
is in Florida,
Yes.
not like in Alabama or
No,
something.
it was Volusia County, Florida, where I testified, and I lived in Ocala, Florida, which is Marion County. So I'd have to drive 80 miles to get to where I had to go to go testify. I would get met by police at the county line, and they would then take me to the courthouse, and I would have protective custody. I'd be in protective custody for the day while I was testifying or doing whatever I was doing.
Wow.
So yeah, it was.
By the way, before we continue, did at the trial, or since this whole thing happened, did any of the attackers, not the number one racist, or the number one out of one of the top 10 racists, it's like a very top 10 baseball players have a top 10 racist, not him, obviously, but did any of the other ones express any remorse about what happened?
Yes, over the years, different ones tried to reach out to me.
Aha. So there are ones that, even though they may be racist, they still are a little bit, they think maybe what they did was not okay.
Not so much my attackers. My attackers, I think, are forbidden from being allowed to contact me in any way, shape, or form. But other people that were involved back at the time, other skinheads have reached out to let me know, hey, by the way, what happened? Over the years, they've reached out to say what happened to you was wrong. We didn't approve of it then. We don't approve of it now. We like you. We support you.
They like you and support you, even
Yeah.
though they're part of racist groups.
One guy, I went back to visit Florida one time, and one guy pulled into my yard that I used to know from the skinhead days. He used to have a Slav Keres, a swastika tattoo on his arm. And he lifted up his shirt, and I looked at it, he had a new tattoo. And his tattoo was a skeleton pulling his skin apart where the swastika was and pushing its head out. On top of the head was a Magen David, the Star of David. And I asked him about that. I was like, man, that's a pretty crazy thing to cover a swastika with. Yes. Because I was looking for something to cover it with that I wanted to show was something coming outside of me. And from watching you and the way you lived your life over the past few years, I admired it. I liked it. And so and that's what I wanted to be like.
That's amazing.
Like that's what I thought.
And this was one of the people that was with you at the time and doing
not when I was attacked, but during the period when I hung out, yeah.
Okay, so you're 23 years old, the court case finishes, and you, at what point did you come to Israel, Aliyah?
When I got a notification from the Florida Department of Correction that everybody was getting out of prison.
So this was when you were in your 30s already?
Yeah, 23. No, I was 23.
They were already coming out of prison when you were 23?
Yeah.
But you said they got 10 years.
Time served.
So the court case finishes 4 years after, and they're already coming out like a year and 2 years later.
Some pled out pretty quick.
Wow.
When they were cleared, they were going to go to jail for attempted murder. If they went to trial, they were going to lose, because one guy did go to trial and he lost, and so it was agreed by the other defense attorneys, just plead out. Don't try and take this guy to.
So they're coming out, and you're starting to get worried. You're afraid, as you should be.
I'm well aware of the possibility. Yes.
So you decide to come to Israel. This was in 1996,
1997.
So in 1997, you decide to come to Israel. You make Aliyah. You're Jewish, like we said. You came home to your ancestral homeland.
Correct.
And you told me something that ever since that October 7th, for you, October 7th is a day of basically solemn, trying to remember where you went wrong, where you went right, like sort of, in Hebrew we call it cheshbon nefesh, where we sort of take stock of what we did.
I was hoping you would say it in English so I could just say cheshbon nefesh. People already have the translation.
Yeah, like you sort of take stock of what you did in the past year, where you went wrong, where you went right, what you can do better the next year. And so that became sort of an anniversary of your near death.
Every year on October 7th, I stop and pause, and I just thank Hashem, the Almighty, that I'm still alive, and I hope that the last year I was worthy, and that I hope that I'm worthy of the upcoming year, and that whatever He sets before my path, that is something that's going to be beneficial for us and for our people.
Wow.
And for Him.
Yeah. So then one other thing that happens to you on October 7th is the first time that you realize basically you have brain cancer.
That was on Simchat Torah.
Simchat Torah, which
this year there was overlap.
It happened overlap 2023. Yeah. So you're hitting all the good marks.
That was actually October 10th, 2010. So in 2009, then I found out that I had brain cancer.
So you have brain cancer, and it's you know where I am. We're here in Tel Aviv. You come here to the hospital in the area here in Tel Aviv to take care of so you're living for a long time already with brain cancer.
15 years.
And did you, at the time when you received the diagnosis, did you understand? How did you feel about it? Let's put it that way.
Then?
Yeah.
I thought I was dead.
Oh, yeah? You thought that's it?
Yeah, I did. I thought I was dead. On October 7th, I did the cheshbon nefesh. On October 10th, I had my first seizure. 3 days later, and I found myself in the emergency room, and they're like, you have brain cancer. I was like, wow.
But now we're in 2025, so you're 15 years after.
Yeah, this is...
Foot.
Yeah.
Knock on wood.
This is 2009. Yeah, so I thought I was done.
But you're not done. So you're here.
3 brain surgeries later, in a book that just came out this year.
Yeah.
3 brain surgeries, 2 chemotherapies, and 1 radiation.
Wow.
We're still going.
Amazing. So now... So first of all, I think it gives a lot of perspective in life when you think that every day could be your last day, pretty much, for a long time. And that basically, I think, probably also drove you to write the book, which basically goes through your time.
The entire H from hate is missing from my head.
What do you mean?
It's all been taken out. That was all tumor. That's why that H is right there. It's sitting on a cavity.
I mean, this is your X-ray of your brain.
It's an MRI of my brain, yes. That's my brain.
And that's the pieces they took out because of the tumor.
Yes, right there.
So, okay. So amazing. Okay. So this is happening all through these years. Your upbringing is what we just said. For your teenage years are fraught with racist skinheads, almost dying, testifying against people, putting them away for not a lot of time. Not enough time. I really hope no one else got hurt by them, but that's not your fault. And then you come to Israel you feel you came home, and then not too long after, relatively speaking, years, not too many years after, you get the brain cancer, and you're already living with the brain cancer for 15 years at this point. And then on 2023, your day of the day that you are thinking of what happened becomes the day for everyone here.
Correct. For all Jews.
And you live at this point in Ashkelon, right? Which is for those of us who are listening or watching outside of Israel, is the city
the most rocketed city in
Israel. The most rocketed city since October 7th, during the war, basically. It's the past year and a half.
Like May, and the war we had in 2021 in May.
Oh, in May also.
Yeah.
But let's talk about since October 7th. That is the 2023. Ashkelon was basically barraged.
Yes.
On a daily basis, dozens of rockets, hundreds throughout maybe even thousands at this point. How did you, how do you cope? Do you think that your sickness and upbringing made you a little more strong
Resilient?
in this? Yeah.
Maybe. I get in a lot of trouble with my friends because I'm the guy that goes to the window and films the rocket intercepts, and I post them online. And the reason
You're not supposed to do that.
I know we're not supposed to. The reason why I do it is because I feel like it's a good tool for hasbara, for people around the world to see what's actually happening.
Yeah, but if you die, no one's going to do hasbara.
That's true.
I would watch out. Yeah, but and just
be wise. Like,
yes.
Yeah, I realize there's a building between me and where I film. So like if someone's going to get hit, God forbid, it's them.
Right.
I mean, I've had rockets
but shrapnel and stuff
all around my apartment. Yes, I've got.
Tons of rockets fell all around your apartment.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
So maybe you can just also, if we're already talking about this, give us, people who might support Israel but haven't been here or might be listening and watching. What exactly happened on October 7th from someone who lives in Ashkelon? It's not the places where the terrorists got physically to you. They came not too far, but they didn't get there. They came to Chof Ashkelon, some of the beaches where they killed people who are at the beach, but not Chof Zikim and all these other places. But they didn't come to the city. What was the atmosphere after October 7th? What did you feel? Your neighbors, you.
It was, for an American, it's incredibly hard to describe what it's like to wake up in the morning and the streets are empty.
Yes.
Like all the men are gone. All delivery drivers, everything that a man does in society, he was gone.
They went to reserves.
They all went to war.
Yeah.
And everything was gone. And it was bizarre to see as a citizen, as a person, as a human of the world, just to see that. Like overnight, boop, everybody was gone. For me in my city, my building, the guys in my building that went to reserves are also part of the building committee. So they had made sure I had the key to the miklat, to the bunker. They were keep it open.
Bomb shelter.
And just keep an eye on it, make sure no one's doing anything and they're making it dirty. So I was going in and out of the bunker daily, cleaning it and stuff like that. And really just, I'd walk after rocket attacks and just collect shrapnel. Because I felt,
for the fun of it?
No, because I want to make a pestle or a statue or something with it to make like some kind of memorial statue. Because you can clearly see the difference between the material that comes out of Gaza. It's a heavier metal, and the material we use in Iron Dome, which is a softer aluminum, which goes up faster.
Right.
And I'm looking to put something together in Europe. Some people I'm working with over there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Like an art collection made out of the statues?
I don't have that much shrapnel. There's a limit how much you carry in
But
your
I could get you some.
Okay.
There's ton in Sderot. They have a museum of the rockets. There are 30 years of rockets, so they have a lot of rockets there.
I have a friend of mine has an organization called Sax for Pax that he made 193 saxophones out of shells used in the First and Second World Wars. And we're looking at doing something similar with
wow.
this.
Nice.
Maybe.
And all that, by the way, is paid by American taxpayers who paid for a lot of this, a lot of these rockets through different pipes and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, it's an interesting way of recycling it. It goes through, it goes in aid, then it comes out in rockets, and then you guys make art and saxophones and stuff out of it. So it's like a recycling. One thing that you did say, which I do think is interesting, is that do not hate the haters. You said that in Vermont and all these other places. But do you hate Hamas? They are racist. They hate Jews.
Hate doesn't have a lot of room in my heart. Because if I start focusing on hate, there's a lot of things you can hate in this world, and it's a bitterness that will just overwhelm you. So I try not to focus on it. Do I dislike them?
Well,
yeah, I mean, it's hard to find the right words to say how I
yes.
feel. Because as we all know, there's an expression that's been going around since October 7th. October 7th, lo pasach habayit b'Yisrael. Like
Yes.
there was no house that wasn't passed over on October
Like
7th.
Passover.
Yes.
No house was passed over like God passed over the Jews. The opposite happened this time.
Indeed.
The Jews were all not passed over, everyone.
My chiropractor was fighting at Zikim.
Wow.
The director of a movie about me, the uncle of a director about a movie about me, was killed on October 7th. The movie's Escape from M18. And he was killed at
Wow.
Nativ Esara. So it's things like that. You start
I'll
seeing.
tell you my perspective is that I think that it's healthy to hate people who are that bad. I think that we should be, and I think you say we've been dancing around this throughout the conversation, and I think it is, you also, maybe you won't call it hate. Maybe our definitions of hate are a little different, but I think that it's important to call evil evil. And I think one of the things that in Western societies we are so afraid of, especially those people that you're in Vermont, it's very easy to call a skinhead evil because everybody hates skinheads. Sorry,
It's okay.
whoever doesn't hate it, I'm sorry for those who don't hate them.
Racists.
But yeah, everybody hates racists.
Racists.
But there's some racists that you can't hate because they're not the bad racists. They're not whites. I'm sorry, it's that simple.
It's racist to dislike somebody who's racist against you.
Yes, and so what happens is that we're so afraid of saying that other cultures, for example, are not as good as our culture. We're afraid to say that people who murder, honor killings and want to come in and annihilate a people, and when they get money, they don't use it to help their people. They use it just to build, dig tunnels and build weapons to kill others. And then when they do go into the enemy territory, they don't go only to military installations. They go to people like you said just now and kill them or do other horrible acts. We should be willing to say that those cultures are evil.
Yes.
And we should be also willing, in my opinion, maybe this is where we differ, to say that we hate them because we hate evil.
The reason why I don't say hate is because I know it's very easy. I never know who I'm speaking to who's in the crowd.
Yes.
Who's listening and how far whatever is being recorded, how far it's going to go and who it's going to reach. And sometimes people reach out, like this book also deals with trauma, how to deal with trauma, different things I dealt with, how to get over different things I had been through. Step by step of what it was like being in the skinheads, what it was like being murdered, what it's like dealing with the trauma of that, and of course brain surgery and having to deal with all that. They were all awake, and I felt the first one, all of it. God bless.
You were awake during your brain surgery?
All three of them, yeah.
What do you mean you were awake? They didn't put you to sleep?
No, they can't. The reason they don't put you to sleep because it gives them a chance if they take a pace out and it's too much. All of a sudden you start speaking in Mandarin or something like that. Like, wait, that's too much.
So that's how they understand. So they're talking to you the whole time as your brain is open?
Not the entire time, but yes. Portions of it, yes.
And how are you feeling at that moment when someone is picking inside your brain?
As calm as a Hindu cow.
What were you thinking about?
Just waiting for it to be over. You're not really thinking, you're just relaxed.
So they were giving you something to relax you.
I was breathing and just trying to stay relaxed.
Wow.
I just trying to stay
But
calm.
why? So what does that have to do with hate? In the sense that you're afraid that someone who will hear you say that you hate evil or that you hate whoever will hear it and like take it the wrong way and.
Well, I was circling back to the book.
Yeah.
Because no one with the group in the States, you have. God bless. I mean, people have asked, who's worse, Democrats or Republicans? And the whole congregation was like, oh.
Yeah.
It was an older guy. I'm like, man. And so we had to talk it out. But because America is so divided at the moment,
Yes.
the world's so divided at the moment.
Even Israel's very
Yes.
divided. Yeah, we can go outside and we'll see it on Wednesday. There's protests and
we will.
stuff. Yeah.
That pointing at the other is something that is a major concern of mine. That when somebody says, I hate the other, dislikes the other, that's where I try and pull them back from.
Yes.
Is realizing that we're all humans. We're all made in God's image, in my personal opinion. So if that's the case, I need to treat you with the same holiness that I want you to treat me.
Okay, with that I agree in the sense that we should all be, as people within us, we should be, political disagreements should not be thought of as good and evil mostly. It should be, we have political disagreements, but our objective goal is to make Israel, America, a better place. And the racists and stuff should be, there's an Overton window of what we can say, like whoever's outside, everybody has their own Overton window.
Yeah.
Problem is, a lot of people close their Overton window, so only people who agree with me are good, and whoever disagrees with me on anything is bad.
Yes.
And so that I agree with that 100%. And I think I forgot who it was that said that Republicans think conservatives think liberals are wrong. Liberals think conservatives are evil. And I think that used to be true. Now it's a lot of times true also the other way around. But I do think also a problem is that, and you tell me what you think about this, is that in the West we've come to a place that everything is political. So you'll talk about a movie, just any regular movie. They're putting in DEI things into the movie, which some people love and other people will hate because it's a culture war, political culture war. You'll go to a restaurant, there'll be the way people call certain, dishes on the menu will trigger them. And you'll go to, there'll be an ad on TV and people will say, why are there too many white people in the ad?
Yes.
Everything is political on every level. And even for women, why is the air conditioning like this and like that? It's like, and that's also political. And so what happens is we used to have a political sphere, and there we could argue and hate each other, but then we'll go have dinner and everybody goes and drinks. I remember I worked in the Knesset, so you had people screaming at each other in the plenum. They go outside, they have a drink and a beer. Problem is that a lot of people take that seriously. They think they really hate each other.
Yeah.
And then they take it out on each other. You agree that everything's political nowadays. That's a bad thing.
What it does, it's like belonging to a football team. It's
Yes.
this is the group this is the team that you support, and it gives you something to identify with. And if you identify with it, you want to support it and encourage it and
Yes.
protect it. And anyone else trying to do something to it, you will have to attack them, and it gives you a certain amount of legitimacy to go and attack them.
I tell you what, I think the conversation with you is, I'm enjoying it immensely, and I would just say that the thing, what we should take away from this talk is that any group judging people by group identity is bad, and what happens, we used to think about, and we still do, white supremacy is bad. Everybody knows this. It's like, other than the white supremacists, but they're a minority of a minority in the U.S. There are
Globally, yeah.
globally there are, but they are in the West. There are groups. They're radical groups. They're radical because they're not in the mainstream. And so everyone is willing to call them out. The problem is we're not willing to call people out on our side, so to speak.
Very true. One thing I try and do when I speak is remind people that the world does not revolve around you.
Yes.
When I was the first brain surgery I had, I felt everything. The second brain surgery, when I went in, I requested not to feel anything. When I asked, did you guys learn anything? And one of the doctors looked at me and said, your worst case scenario is our best case scenario. I was like, so you mean my pain saved somebody else? He said, yes. All I could do was start crying.
What do you mean?
Because...
No, what did the doctor mean? Maybe I didn't understand.
Because what it meant was the pain that I endured in my first brain surgery by feeling everything while I was awake. And they knew I was feeling it because, of course, I was screaming throughout the surgery. There was nothing they could do to stop it. But it did teach them how to stop it, prevent it in the future. So for that, I realized that, okay, bad things happen.
So actually, the medicine learned something from operating on you.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the same with my case going to the Florida State Supreme Court. And
what's your case?
Florida State Supreme Court.
What happened there?
The hate crimes law was constitutional, and they kept it.
Someone tried to say the hate crime law of Florida wasn't constitutional, and it went all the way to...
It was a subject of First Amendment rights, speech.
Well, I think that in general, we should also say one of the things that people are angry now, they're trying to kick out this guy in Colombia that hated Jews and hated Jews. Yeah, they're trying to kick him out. So I would just say, they're saying it's... And they're also trying to say that the federal government won't give money to universities that let people hate Jews on campus. And people are saying it's a First Amendment issue. If you would say that about the Civil Rights Act, and you would be consistent about it, we can maybe have a conversation. And maybe I would even agree. If you say across the board, everything anyone says is good. Problem is, you're only suddenly being against it when it's against the Jews.
Yes.
That is very telling.
It speaks very loudly.
Yes. Because no one, at least in the mainstream, said anything about the Civil Rights Act in the past 30 years in a bad way. Now, when they're trying to enforce it against the Jews, Title VIII, all these other things where you can't say things against Jews, they're suddenly very, very angry about it. So I think that, we have to say that anti-Semitism and Jew hatred, it takes a lot of forms over the years. My grandparents were in the Holocaust. Their whole family, my whole family, 2 generations back, was wiped out. From both sides, I could have had hundreds of cousins at this point, and I don't. And then you've had it over the years. America, thank God, basically, just in an institutional sense, was spared. And now I'm very worried. I said, Professor Neil Ferguson on my podcast said he's very scared. The trends in America don't look good, not on the right, like we said, on the more what's considered left, but it's the cultural trends that are important, because politics is like downstream from culture. So whatever becomes fashionable, at some point it'll get into the decision-making process. So I'm very worried about it, and I think that people like you, who are speaking out about their experiences and aren't ashamed of your past, not only are you not ashamed, you're able to speak through your past and teach people of what needs to be done and how dangerous it is. It's important to have you with us. So stay alive.
Working on it.
Yeah. And also, I just wanted to thank you so much for being with us.
My
it
pleasure.
was really a pleasure.
Thank you for having me here.
Yes. And I hope everything stays relatively quiet in Ashkelon, and stay safe. And guys, again, like I say in the end of every show, if you have any questions, comments, anything you want me to pass on to John, feel free to reach out with no cursing and no, sometimes people get angry. Although with this episode, I don't think people, unless they're the skinheads.
Then curse me, that's fine.
But then I'll block them.
Right.
But if they have nice comments or questions or even tough questions, but in a respectful way, I will forward them to you, and we will get the answers, and maybe we'll put them up if we could have even a 10-minute conversation with the answers later on. So thank you so much, John. And John Daly, again, I'm going to put the book up again. Read his book. Great book. Important story. We gave a little bit of a taste during the conversation, but obviously it's more in-depth in the book.
It's broken into 3 parts to walk you through the story.
Yes.
The progression.
The first is the skinhead stuff, the murder. It's unbelievable that I can't even get my head around how you're still alive. And 7 people sitting on you and punching you in the water. It's like, okay. And then the second thing is Aliyah, coming to Israel. And the third is the brain cancer.
Yeah.
So you have 3 different parts of your life that are unbelievable. Well, Aliyah, I also did Aliyah, and it's tough. But it's also, if it works out, it's good.
This is home.
Yeah. And also people are, we spoke about that Israelis are a little bit, difficult and they hate each other. It's true, but it's not true. And it's a different type of hate than in the U.S.
Agreed.
And what I mean is that in the U.S., they really hate each other. And here, October 7th. Yeah, and October 7th happened. We had the big protest for a year over the judicial thing. October 7th happened, and almost uniformly, everyone came to fight. Mm-hmm. So people were in the same tank who supported the government.
And all different strata of Israelis. Yeah.
Yeah, so people were sitting in the tank being shot at and living with each other for months in this big cubicle of a tank, who hated each other a week or 2 weeks before. And were at each other's throats. Once the enemy came, they were together in the tank together, which is just goes to show you. I don't think America would be that way. God willing.
Who knows? It's one of the amazing things about this culture.
Yeah.
That we all, it's amazing being Jewish and being in Israel in times like this.
Yes.
Because you get to see how we all come together and pull it together, and it makes a lot of stories in the Torah come alive.
Yes.
Because you realize, okay, that's what we did then, this is what we're doing now.
Exactly. And also you could understand the fights between the Jews and in the desert. Mm-hmm. They had it so good, but they couldn't stop fighting. Yeah. So, and also, I would just say that I think a lot of the West can learn from Israel in the sense that sort of a feeling of purpose, a feeling of, even if we don't like each other, we need to come together at certain critical points to save ourselves. And I think that's missing in a lot of Western culture. And I've been speaking with a lot of leaders in the West who say, yeah, we should learn from Israel on different types. Obviously, Israel has a lot to learn from other places in the West.
It's very important because you're spreading information and knowledge, which is helping a lot of people. And that's what's most important.
I'm not going to say I agree, but that's what I'm trying to do. So, again, thank you guys for being with us.
Pleasure.
And it was a pleasure. It was more than a pleasure. And we'll see you on our next episode. Thank you so much for being with us again.